Hi traders, let's get going on the weekly review. Here we've got the dollar index closing level with the Thursday close. Shot up, looks as if it's going to gain a lot of strength on the back of the good jobs figures, and fell right back down below to the 76.6 level. On the weekly chart we have closed just above the previous week's open, so we are just holding 76. Is a major level in the sand. Now we had a new low, but a close just inside that bar, so it's basically sideways. It's inconclusive. The Monday's close is going to be critical. If we close below 76, then expect more short action, and the chart is on the daily favouring the short action with these topping tails here and these lower closes. But if we can close below 76.5, then expect to get back up to that 50 MA pretty quick. So the Monday's close is going to be critical. Now, equity markets, liking the jobs data, but getting a little bit hesitant up here. So they paused on Thursday, good jobs data came out, and we headed up to that resistance. But what's got me a little nervous is the way this Nasdaq's behaving. On the Nasdaq, we've got a shooting star like bar below this key level, and you can see I've just marked this arrow here. On the 19th of January was an area of resistance that we pulled back from, and we have closed below that, can't get through that area for the middle to late last week. Now moving averages are opening out, so what I suspect is bullish. It's essentially bullish. 50 MA break, pull back to 50 MA, and we are holding these highs. We keep having slightly higher closes, and the ES is much stronger. So what I think we're going to have to do is get a pullback to at least 23.20 before we can move back up to the upside. So we're still holding a bullish trend, not looking, although it's a shooting star, not looking for this to roll over at this stage, but as soon as we close below the 8, then that will potentially give me an alert to a potential short side. This could be a head and shoulders, shoulder, head, shoulder. So the minute we close below the 8, it will start to alert me to possible shorts. In the meantime, I'm still holding my longs. This is gold, and on the daily I took a pullback to this bar here at 14.30 and a stop below here at 14.12. So we nearly got stopped out, but we closed just inside the Friday's bar, closed at 14.27, so I'm slightly down from my entry, only by a few points. I'm still holding it, but I am getting a little nervous of the fact that we couldn't break back above that level. But we have held the 8. That's critical. It is something of a hangman bar, but with a weakness in the dollar index, I'm still looking to see if we can break above 1433 and break out towards the 1500 area on the gold. So I'm going to hold it. So far it's just a pullback to the 8 EMA on the weekly with a close slightly higher than the open on the week, but a pretty flat week on the gold. Oil, let's look at the continuous contract. Very, very strong. So this pullback down here to 97.20 was just that, a pullback. This is very, very bullish setup, and the 8-day moving average is broken through the 200 in the weekly, and we had a very decent close on Thursday and Friday. So let's go back to the actual contract that we are in. Right. So I talked about a pullback to this area which we didn't get. So it's bust up there without us. I'm not going to swing trade this because the RSI is so high, but on a intraday basis, if I can get a pullback to 107.13, let's see, yeah, if I can get a pullback to 107.13, I would trade that intraday on the 60-minute charts and the tick charts after the open. Okay, that's on the oil. A lot of the commodities are coming off for these highs. This is cotton, which was on literally on an absolute tear, pun intended, but we've closed below the 8 and the 20 here. We're in a wedge, and it just looks as if we could start to move back to the downside here. However, a break above that trendline resistance and we are off on another leg up. But we've had 1, 2, 3 legs up, A, B, C correction, and we could possibly get another move direction here, but at the moment it's looking short, but trapped in that. So whichever way we break out of that wedge is going to give us a direction on the cotton. Just moving across to other commodities. Beans. The corn is just is gapped up, is just holding the high, so I don't think the corn's not tradable for me. However, beans had a really big buyer's bar on the Thursday, very hesitant on the Friday, as the dollar looks as if it's going to be strong but pulled right back. But we've closed below Thursday's highs. I'm looking for this to pull back. Looking for this to pull back to this trendline support and then move back up to the upside. So if I can get a pullback in the 1375 area, then I'll look to see if we can move out. That would coincide with the weekly chart, which would be the 80MA on the weekly chart. So still bullish. I just think we need a little further pullback before we get to touch the 8, finish the consolidation and move to the upside. WTI is a stock we found on the stocks course. Weekly is very positive, so we have 3 very positive weeks, and still looking to see if we get up to 25.60. I'm not in this, but I know 1 or 2 of you on the course are in it. Gapped up and closed inside Thursday's bar, but I would still trade this one. I would keep your stop out of trouble. I would hold my stop below 21.60 on this one, just to give it plenty of room to see if we can come back to 20 to 22 and get up to 26. Okay, I think it's a bullish consolidation. We need a retest of this area here. In fact, yeah, I need to keep your stop. I will keep your stop at 21.50. Just give it enough room to move, and then see if we can get up to 26 on WTI. This is Apple. It's just closed below the 8 on the weekly. Well, look at this. Look at this daily. It's closed below the 8 and 20 and engulfed the whole week's action on the back of the Japanese problems, potential parts shipments out from Japan factories to the US. So I'm just wondering, that's why the Nasdaq is looking a little bit hesitant up here, and it could be that as the Japan issue starts to settle down and more evidence, more information starts coming out of Japan about some of the chip producers and so on, that could lead to some weakness in the Nasdaq. Okay, so we've got conflicting issues in the markets at the moment. We've got strong US data. It's looking as if the US recovery is gaining some momentum. GDP, jobs, etc. is continuing to look more positive, but we've just got other issues out there, particularly in Nasdaq stocks that are that could shape the Nasdaq over the coming weeks. So just be aware of that. If we get a 50MA break to the downside in the Apple, we could, and we've had a series of lower highs. So the Apple is looking weak, looking shaky up here. It is looking weak up here. This is a critical time of the year as we begin to get towards the summer and the build up towards Christmas. I know it sounds a bit crazy talking about Christmas when we haven't even got Easter out of the way, but if you're looking at the cycles of these markets, a short signal on the Apple at this stage could be quite damaging. Let's look at Baidu. Very, very positive. Talked about this one. It's a wave breakout. This is Chinese Google, and it's just moving up and doing very, very nicely. Google itself. So off of these lows at 5 close to the 550 mark, we are attempting to get back up through the 50 EMA. And look at that weekly. It's just closed above the 8 and the 20 on the weekly. So if we keep an eye on this one, there's a double bottom down here and can get a close back above that 50 EMA, above 595. If we break 600, then I think we could move back up to the upside on the Google. Right, my target on this, sorry, just talking about Forex now, let's talk about currencies. My target on this Aussie dollar yen is just up here on 88. Could try and get a pullback to 86.5, but you need a pretty big stop to go 2 bars back when you've got major resistance up there. So if you're not in it, stand aside on the Aussie yen. The CAD is very, very strong. This is CAD yen. You can see here, so look far to the left here on this July last year, got major resistance at 86.50 in July. So that's now going to be major support here in April. If we get a pullback to 86.5, you could just put a stop under this support, or ideally 2 bars back, which would be just above the 8. It's very, very extended up here, but it's a very strong Forex market. The CAD is very, very strong. If you get a pullback to that level, you could get up to 150 plus. If you look at the resistance levels, 90 is the major resistance, so a pullback to 86.5 could give you a 350 point move back up to that resistance area on the CAD yen. Okay, Aussie US is making historic highs. You can see how that shooting star was just completely engulfed on Friday. It was just a consolidation pattern as we reached out to new highs, confirming the weakness in the US dollar. If you wanted to, excuse me a second, if you wanted to buy a pullback to that bar, you can get a very close stop. So pull back to 103.50 with a stop at 103 just below, which would be below major support on that 127 extension. That could be a good move. You're not risking that much capital for a potential further move to the upside. The RSI is high, so just bear that in mind. It's not that particularly high on the weekly. This is just moving sideways. 2 very strong currency pairs fighting it out, so stand aside and leave it alone. Right, Euro. We've got rate decision on Thursday, I think it is. Let's have a look. Yeah, 12:45 GMT on Thursday, the rate decision. Now, most economists believe the Eurozone are about to put their rates. So if you get a pullback to 141.87, but you're going to have a big stop now. Well, relatively big stop. You're going to have to go below 140.50. Okay. So pull back to that area there at 140. Let's just refine that a bit. There's a lot of support there at 142. I mean, to ensure you get in this trade, you might have to go back to that 142 to get in this, but you're still going to have a stop 150 points away on that one. Alright, but it is meant to be, it's supposed to be a high probability the rates are going to go up, but certainly no guarantees. And I think we can see that rate decision in the euro playing on the euro pairs. This is euro Aussie dollar. See how it's holding this area here. It keeps breaking down and getting bought. Now I don't think there's any trade here because there's just so much congestion up there, but these are a series of hammers and stopping bars, and you could take a break of that 50 MA or break of Friday's high at 137.27 with a stop down here at 135.96. See if this hammer on this trend line can take you right up here, but it's a low probability trade, so I would suggest you just stand aside. You just want to get just going through these euro pairs, just working them out, seeing if there is a good option. Right, this euro Swissy is terrific, but it's right up there close to resistance. I don't think we're going to get a pullback to there, and with that resistance up there on the 200 EMA, it's not tradable. If you're not in this, stand aside. Euro CAD, terrible mixed chart. Let me clean the weekly up. In the weekly chart, we've just had a kiss of the trendline support and finished just below the 50 EMA. If we break out of this weekly bar here at 137.85, we could get to 146. But just bear in mind you've got the euro versus a very strong CAD, and that daily is very mixed. However, if we get a close, the best thing to do I think with this one is to wait on Monday, see if we get a close above 137.50 on Monday, and then buy a pullback. Okay, so we've got to watch these euro pairs very closely this week. And likewise on these Euro New Zealand, if we get a close above 187.60, I would want to buy a pullback to this one to see if we can get back up to 195. Euro pound is just very hesitant, not touching it. Positive weekly bar, but just not touching it. Euro yen is at major resistance. Let's have a look at it in the weekly. Yeah, you can see all that resistance up there. However, let me see, at such a strong bar we could break out here. But I'm afraid if you're not in this, you're just going to have to leave it, because it's so extended from the 8 and the RSI is so high on the daily, you're just going to have to leave that one. Let's look at some other pairs. Right, this Swiss yen has closed just above the 50 EMA on the weekly. It did do that up here, but had the 200 EMA to fight with. Now we've got the 200 EMA way behind us, and the 8 coming through the 200. So let's have a look at the daily. So this one, again, you're buying high against the yen, but the yen is so weak. If you get a pullback to this level here, 90, with a stop 2 bars back here at 89.90, so that can't be 90 then, can it? That's 90.63. Pull back to 90.63. With a stop at 89.88, and see if we can wind our way up to 93.70 on the Swiss yen. US dollar yens hit major resistance. Would I trade it if it broke out? Not with that high RSI, no. US dollar Swissy moved up to the 50 MA and just pulled right the way back. Higher close in the weekly, but only tested the 8 and then fell back. I would revisit that if we now close above the 50 MA on the US dollar Swissy. US dollar CAD has dropped very severely. Right, we get a pullback to 96.66. I'd want to stop at 97.35. I would want a target of, let's see what the weekly tells us. Wow. Alright, my target is 90.50. Okay. That's probably the best chart out there. Where you get charts where you get breaks of major levels like that, we had a major low It looked as if it was going to break to the upside and just completely fell right back below the 50 and just rolled over. Where you get a complete decisive move to the downside like that, then I definitely want to get short on a pullback, and I think the risk reward ratio is acceptable. We're trying to get 600 points. Okay. Pound Aussie dollar. Hammer in the daily. Now, if the euro puts their rates up, that's going to put a lot of pressure on the pound. The expectation will be that the pound, because we're part of the eurozone, will have to follow suit fairly quickly. We are grappling with the highest interest rates, the highest inflation in the G20. So that does look very tempting to buy a break of 155.16 with a stop down there. It's got a gap to the 8. I think the fact we haven't got RSI down there, I'm going to have to leave it. Because we haven't got RSI, it doesn't fully meet my criteria, so I will have to stand aside on that one. And the weekly is just so severely weak, I can't reckon. It's not a high probability trade to the upside. Same on the pound CAD. The weekly is just such a bearish close on the weekly. I think a pullback to 155.63 on the weekly, and that will drop further. Pound yen, very bullish. Let's have a look at this one. Pullback to 134.12, a stop at 132.40. So looking for a fairly deep pullback on that one. Broken the 50 MA on the weekly. We've come into a lot of resistance there, haven't we? Closed on a lot of closed just above resistance there, just above it. So I think this is another good chart. Target. Let's have a look. We're closed above these bars here. Got a lot of resistance at 137. Okay, so the risk reward ratio doesn't work out because of that resistance at 137. Not touching it. Pound Swissy. Not touching it. Pound New Zealand. I'm going to have to walk away from that. It's a very bearish weekly, but I don't like the daily for a short pound. I got stopped out by 4 points on my long, and then it ran up. We closed above the 8 and the 50, so it closed above the 20 and the 50, but we've just got the 8 below us. Like I said, if the eurozone do put their rates up, as economists predict, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the pound to follow suit. Otherwise, this could be badly hit. I need to close on Monday above 161.51 to see if that is worth a long. But the higher high up here has got me interested in this. Now you could do it another way. You could just trade a break of 161.32 with a stop down here at 159.60, because the target on this would be so the weekly's closed back above the 8. Look at that. It's a nice bullish weekly. So if we break out of 161.50, then we are heading for 165. Okay. Best thing to do is to wait for the close of Monday to see if we are going to break out of there, or just take a break of that 161.50, which is the high of the weekly bar as well. That to me is a good setup. Okay, A little frustrating I'm stopped out of that one, but that's the way it goes. Okay, so just to recap, by a pullback in the CAD yen, if we get one to 85.65, pullback to the Aussie US, so pullback on Aussie US to 1036.04, the stop 2 bars back at 130.04. Pull back in the Euro US to really, it's got to be just above 142.05, I think, and so on. Okay, I hope that helps, and see you in the next update.